Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. And now the Friday Crime Report. Ethan Crumbley's mother was convicted on 4 counts of involuntary manslaughter. She's the mother of Ethan Crumbley, the young man who was allowed to shoot and kill 4 students and injure 7 others at an Oxford, Michigan school in 2021. There were, of course, all kinds of warning signs that this was about to happen. His fellow classmates said that they knew he would go and do something like this because of how weird he acted in school. His teachers caught him on his cell phone, literally shopping for bullets during class the day before he committed his mass murder. He wrote a note saying that the voices won't stop. Please help me. His parents were told all about this and they laughed it off. When told that her son was shopping for bullets during class, his mother sent him a text saying he had to learn to not get caught. See, this is typical red state Republican thinking. It's the old Sarah Palin. All this nonsense about these idiots who think to themselves that their guns are their power and this is how they use it. Ethan's parents came up to the school to talk to the terrified teachers on November 30th, 2021. This after Ethan had been caught in class making violent drawings that day. Of course, he wasn't removed from school because they only do that with black students who the teachers accuse of being unruly. Of course, Ethan's parents didn't care about that. They didn't even bother to remove this little reprobate from school. They said they had to go back to work and they just didn't have time. So as a result, Ethan Crumbley was allowed to stay, and only a couple of hours after Ethan's parents left the school, he went on his rampage. So in a single day, you had an excellent chance to stop this from happening. This little punk had been caught in class making violent drawings. The teachers called his parents and said, "You need to come up here right now." His parents did so, but then his parents said, well, there ain't nothing we can do, we're leaving. And then he immediately started shooting up the classroom. It was almost comical how many warning signs there were and how obvious it was that this little creep was about to do something violent. It couldn't have been more clear. Everyone could see this coming. Yet nothing was done. Even the school didn't take action. Ethan's parents came up to the school, but the mother, who clearly wore the pants in the family, said she had to go to work, so she couldn't remove her little monster. They were given every chance to take action, but they refused. That's the reason why charges were brought against them. Jennifer Crumbley tried to do a Jedi mind trick during her trial. She said that she never refused to remove Ethan, that if Ethan had wanted to go home, she would have taken him. Now, of course, she knows that's weasel words. The school told her that she needed to remove him. Ethan wasn't about to leave because he had already made up his mind to carry out his act of slaughter, so of course he wasn't going to say no. This is her attempting to try to put the blame for this on him. He's her child. The school's saying you got to get him out of here. And she's acting like, well, I think it's his choice. So in other words, she went along with whatever he did. That makes her an accomplice by her own admission. These suburban psychos never get dealt with beforehand. Under white supremacy, genetic immunity from law trumps survival. Jennifer Crumbley was hardly the picture of fitness before this trial, but you can tell that she was told to put on some extra weight in the hopes that it would make her look more sympathetic to a jury, but it didn't. And you have these white media outlets and pundits, especially online, who are saying that this entire case, from the charges to the verdict, it's a legal outrage, it's a legal threat, it sets a dangerous legal precedent. Bad parenting crime, one pundit says. You know, a lot of states have laws that punish parents if they have a child who's running around committing crimes. Everything from ungovernable child laws to contributing to the delinquency of a minor. So these laws have been on the books since forever. They're not new at all. What these white pundits don't like is that this legal precedent has been applied to a white person. If this had been a black parent, then they would be crowing about it and calling it an important new tool in prosecutors' arsenal. They would be pointing to other cases involving black people, that is, and saying that prosecutors need to look at using involuntary manslaughter in these cases too. They understand that when laws are written, it matters who they're applied to, especially at the beginning, and they don't want lawmakers writing laws or prosecutors carrying out cases that set these kind of precedents, not with non-black suspects. When these precedents are set, people remember who these laws are applied to, and for these white supremacists and their apologists, they want it to be understood that the laws were written to punish black people, not to punish them. Something these would-be defenders of the Crumbleys conveniently forget, though, is that when the authorities announced that they were going to be charging Jennifer and her husband with involuntary manslaughter, both this husband and wife turned Bonnie and Clyde, they went on the lam and into hiding. It took a day to finally track those two down. They were found hiding in Detroit with brand new phones and $6,000 in cash. This is the same thing that we saw with another teenage killer who murdered 4 people and whose name was also Ethan. Ethan Couch, the so-called affluenza teen. When he was charged, his mother took him into hiding too, and they both turned fugitive and ran off to Mexico. So whenever these mass murderers are in danger of finally facing consequences for their actions, their first resort is to flee. And today, Ethan Couch is a free man, as is his mother. So no wonder Ethan Crumbley and his parents thought that they could get away with the same thing. They saw the slap on the wrist that Ethan Couch got, and they figured the suburban immunity would have to kick in sooner or later. And even after all that, you still have people who are openly defending them. Ridiculous. The way some of these white pundits are talking about this case, you would never know that this woman and her husband had bought their little psycho a gun. You would never know that they had been told by the teachers on numerous occasions about his disturbing behavior, and that the parents' response was to send him a text laughing it off. She was enabling this to happen, and her husband was too. They weren't being charged with being parents. They were being charged because they could not only have and should have done something to stop this, but they only helped to facilitate it. Every step of the way, they were involved. And these white commentators who were getting all outraged about this sets a dangerous precedent. You have law enforcement who constantly are arresting black people for crimes that they were not directly involved in, such as these all-in laws, gang injunctions, etc. You have these racist police and authorities in Tennessee, which is the birthplace of the KKK, might I add, and they had black children, minors no less, arrested and jailed because these kids had witnessed a fight between 2 classmates. Now, children have been fighting after school as long as there's been school, and other kids watch because kids are immature. But since when has it been a jailable offense? It's not, but the racist white woman who was the judge in that area tried to act like it was. Of course, the children arrested and jailed were all black, and the racist judge, Donna Davenport, she has a decades-long history of jailing mostly black children for little reason or none whatsoever. So where were these white commentators to show their outrage over that? Now that's a case where you're having somebody criminalized simply for existing. Children arrested and jailed, not for fighting, but for having seen classmates fighting. Since when do you take kids who are not even anywhere near being adults and treating them as if you should show adult judgment? I think some elementary and middle school kids watching a fight is a little bit less serious than 2 reprobate parents who intentionally bought their little psycho a gun, deliberately took him to the gun range instead of having him do his homework, and who, when warned about his behavior, gleefully joked and kidded with him when the school called and told him they were worried what he was going to do. And then afterwards, she and her husband went into hiding. I think that's far more serious than some kids watching a fight after school, but the people who are showing their phony outrage for the Crumbleys today were nowhere to be seen 3 years ago, and I would wager that the ones who did comment on that case in Tennessee were in favor of what happened there. And all of this phony hysteria by white media figures talking about judicial overreach and prosecutorial overreach, lines that they only say and only bring out when the accused is white. You never hear that kind of talk whenever the accused is black. We never hear about prosecutorial overreach, overcharged. Oh, what was about the law? This is going to get knocked down on appeal. They never talk like that. Last time I heard this kind of phony outrage about some sort of legal action, it was when now former Judge Aaron Persky decided that he would ignore the law so he could let a rapist, Brock Turner, get away with his crime. Oh, we were told by the white media, the recall of Aaron Persky, this is going to put a chilling effect on judges, and they're going to be giving people the hardest sentences imaginable because they're going to be terrified of being recalled, and this is going to disproportionately affect black people. Oh, you think this is going to be affecting white people? No, this is going to affect black people. That's what they were trying to do then. Well, as we all know, the judges were not intimidated at all. They're still giving lowball sentences to white offenders and throwing the book at the black ones, as they've always done. So this is what we see with this phony outrage. All it's meant to do is to say, hey, remember my white privilege. Don't infringe on my white privilege. That's what it's meant to say. Now, Jennifer Crumbley still has yet to be sentenced, and her husband has yet to go on trial. So there's still plenty of time for some judge to try to give some white privilege after the fact, or for some appeals court to decide the genetic immunity from law must be maintained no matter what. But we all know that racial privilege is the core of white supremacy. It is the day-to-day benefits that everyone classified as white enjoys, so they cannot be imposed upon. To place the same restrictions on white people's behavior, activities, and movements as are pathologically enforced against black people's rights, that would be to erase white privilege. And you can't incentivize a united racial front for white supremacy unless you can give tangible benefits for it, or at the very least, psychic benefits. So it seems the kids in America are going to have to get used to Scooter the Shooter being allowed to come to homeroom armed to the teeth, and that everyone knows that they're looking at the next mass murderer right beside them, and they know nothing will be done about it because this society decided long ago that racial privilege was more important than the lives of its own children. That being the case, I guess the 3 R's now are revolver, reload, repeat. And that's this week's Friday Crime Report. Keep your eyes open and stay on alert, because there's a lot worse criminals out there than the ones the white corporate media chooses to show you. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors: Federica Moore, Samuel Divers, Norma Anthony, Marvin Cox, and D. Allen. Salute to them, and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.